Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Superman and Lois Season 4, Episode 2. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Immediately picking up where the last episode left off. Lois, Jonathan, and Jordan all gathered around Clark's body, and people in town are gathered being like, oh my god, like they're seeing Superman's dead body. And luckily Lana and Sarah show up, and like Lana's able to convince everyone just to get away, and just Lois is like, go ahead, Jordan, like get your dad to the Fortress of Solitude as soon as possible. Maybe Laura will be able to do something. And she puts him in a sort of suspensive, god, what's the word I'm looking for, suspended animation. And it was interesting too, because it's like apparently that's how Krypton would deal with its criminals. And even, you know, it's like his heart's missing, but it's like, right, you can just grow him a new one, but it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Because yes, Kryptonians could regenerate, sure, with their power, but like regrowing a limb or a heart, like it, that you don't do that. So she's going to do everything she can, but for Jordan, it's like, I don't think I can handle this. Like, he brought up the whole point last episode, like he don't think he can do this without his dad. So it's like, please just, we can't like not have him. So when he reports back to his mom, which Sarah and Lana are there for them, which Jonathan's juggling the fact is of like, he's always had this in-between spot with, at least, you know, with his mom, but now he's even more in the center of trying to keep it together, because he's like, once again, the last episode of him not trying to give into the fear and stuff, but it's like, I gotta be strong. Like, I'm going through this, but I have to be strong for Mom and Jordan, because neither one of them are going to be able to handle this. Mom is still like, you know, the radiation is still getting to her. The reconstructive surgery, like, is still a thing. Jordan is always, he's going to fall apart because he's not ready for this. He wants to be dad so badly, but it's like he's not ready for this. You know, even though he's been trained up by dad, like he's still not ready to take over the role of Superman. And it's like, here I am. I have to do everything I can to hold my family together in this moment. And it's like, they're there for each other, but it is this complicated thing where Jonathan feels like he has to be there for his family, and is like, who's can kind of, I mean, they're there for each other. They're all like, once again, even Lois is doing the same thing. She's trying so hard to be strong just for Jordan and Jonathan, but it's like she's barely hanging on. She wants to go into the Gazette because she wants to write an article, which she does, titled "The Death of Superman." How very befitting, once again, that being the title of, you know, that run. So it's like, oh, that literally being the article is like, oh, very nicely done. But it's also the fact that she's trying to dive into work to also, it's like her way to mourn Clark, because she's kind of having to accept he's going and move on, and like or at the very least, at least the notion of there's some slimmer of hope, maybe he could come back, but just a majority of her knowing, like, and believing there's no way he can come back from this. There's just something Superman can't come back from. So she's trying to find a way to let go and have some closure, but also like she'd rather put this out there in the world than let the world find out any other way, because Lex could probably gloat about Superman being dead or make that announcement, but he probably wouldn't gloat because the world doesn't know him to be the massive monster that he is. So, hell, he's there with Yvonne Chapman's character, because she's like, she brought it up last episode, like Luthor Corp been running fine for the past 17 years. Well, I think that was Lex's perspective. So it's like, how do we go about things? And he's like, no, I'm going to stay in Smallville. For one, let's just celebrate the fact is, Superman is dead. Brave new world. He's like, it's a brave new world. And it's like, no, our new world. And celebrating and toasting a thorn in his side for so many decades, you know? You also have like Lana and Sarah once again trying to be there for them, wanting to help. It's like, we got to do something about Lex, because Lana's already feeling guilty, because she's like, right, that property he's staying in, it's like, I gave that to him because a shell corporation bought it, and now there's not much she can do, because it's like she's limited on what she can do, because it's like anything she does could be seen as a situation where Lex could end up. Lois had expressly told her not to get too involved in this, because this is my fight, my family's fight. This is not yours. I mean, she'd rather it not be her family's fight, but it's still her fight. And It's just she's trying so hard to hold her family together, but she's angry at him, at Lex, and just doesn't know what to do at this moment. You know, her dad's recovering. It's like, what can we do in this situation? Lana's trying to find every means to try and help by limiting how much property, because Lex does seem like he's buying up property in Smallville, and it's like, well, what does he do? Like, what is he going to do with all that? Like, he's trying to get some mining rights, and I don't know what that's going to be for in the long run. Once again, he got that device at the end of the last episode. What is that about? I'm also curious, where is Doomsday? Like, is Doomsday like sleeping kind of similar to like the chamber, or like the thing that Doomsday was sealed away in the TV show Krypton? If you ever saw it, I wonder it's kind of going to be a similar thing of like that's where Doomsday is when he's not needed, or what, you know? Because he is, sadly, in a really twisted way, he is kind of a pet to Lex. But obviously, like, there's that complicated thing, because like I think it was Emily that was talking to Lana about, right, is it really such a bad thing for someone like Lex to buy up property here? And it's like, well, we already kind of went through that with like someone like Morgan Edge. We also saw where that ended up, so she doesn't want history repeating itself, because Lex is obviously even worse than Morgan. Morgan, you know, turns stuff around for the most part, you know, by the end of everything. But still, it's a situation of, do we really just let him come up here and buy properties, even though it's like, yes, Smallville needs the income in an economical standpoint, but it's like, I'm not going to let that man come here and run things, because the world doesn't know him to be the evil bastard that he is. I know, because my friend was put down by him, and it's like, my other friend is going through so much hurt right now because her world is completely turned upside down. She's blaming herself of like, if I had just listened to Lex last season, none of this would have happened if I had just walked away. But it's like, no, you can't let a man like Lex, who believes himself to be in the right, to, even though, like, once again, he might not have committed the crime he went to prison for, but like, yeah, it's only because he didn't get caught for the other terrible things that he's done. Once again, no one's the villain of their own story. He still believes himself to be a hero, that he's in the right in this regard. I mean, hell, Lois is the one who basically presented the evidence that got your case overturned. Like, you are out because of her. Yes, it took 17 years, but she corrected her mistake. But it's like, all that anger that's built up for, you know, losing his daughter too, like, it just pissed him off. And he's seeing red, and that's all he's seeking right now is vengeance. He's consumed by it. There's no talking him off the ledge, no matter what anyone tries to tell him. Like, a business partner from like Luther Corp is like, oh, so we put you in front of like a camera, in front of a board, telling them like, you know, the plans for the future. He's like, no, my plans are to stay here. He's like, in Smallville? It's like, so you're really not coming back to Lex Corp? And it's like, no, he's not, because he's got plans, whatever they may be, for the future here. And it just, so is destroying Lois and her family just a byproduct, or is it what he's doing in Smallville is a necessary piece to that very puzzle? Who knows? But with all of this going on, Jordan kind of did not tell his mom everything, or he ultimately ends up telling Jonathan that, hey, if we can get Dad's heart back, Grandma Laura thinks she could fix Dad. So it's like, right, he was trying to track down the Beast, which are like, that's a stupid thing. You are not nearly at the same level as your dad, and he couldn't take down Doomsday. You sure as hell can't. But he's like, right, I'm just looking for the heart. But it's like, right, if that thing had the heart, like, it most likely gave it to Lex, considering it does whatever Lex wants. So he is a human. He's a lot more easier to deal with. It's like, yeah, but because humans don't have powers, not regular humans don't have powers, they are a lot scary. They can be a lot scarier and craftier, because they have to compensate for the disproportion of power between like a normal human being and someone like Superman, you know. So Jordan went full steam ahead, and just like dressed in his suit, confronts him and is like, yo, give me, like, where's Superman's heart? Like, pins him against the wall. He's like, oh, what are you gonna do? You don't have it in you. He's like, okay, back away from me. And I think that's the thing. Jordan's the one with power, and I love that perspective of he has to float up to be at the same eye level as Lex. And it's like, once again, he's intimidating in a lot of ways, and having someone of Michael Cutlet's stature too playing the role adds to that. And it's the situation of, yeah, like next time you come in here, come at me, you better be ready to go for the jugular, because like you just don't have it in you, kid, and sends him off. And so it just kind of bounces and goes about his own business. But that ended up being a fatal flaw, because later on, Jonathan was trying to talk to his mom to try and stop her from publishing the article. She sees Lex and she storms in his house, and then he pieces it all together. It's like, oh yeah, that son of yours with powers. You're like, oh fuck, he figured it out. And then the same thing about Clark. He's like pieced 2 and 2 together. He's like, so he definitely, once again, I remember in last season he confronted Clark not knowing that Clark was Superman. It's not until the Jordan situation that he figured it out. Because once again, he saw Jordan clenching his fist, and then the way, like, them being up close and everything, he pieced it together, and it's like, well, you'd only be acting like this, wanting to heart. It's your dad. And now for him, it's like, oh, that's why you protected Superman all these years, because you were trying to protect your husband, which is like, so interesting, because it's like the pot calling the kettle. Like, you're doing all this because of your relationship with your daughter. That's what you're pissed about. But you're like, oh, here's this woman is trying to protect that alien superpowered person. But it's like, oh, you were always extremely biased towards Superman. Makes sense. You were protecting your husband and your secret. But now it's like, now the worst person to know that secret now knows. Granted, it's kind of a moot point because Clark is dead, but Lois blows up at Jordan and Jonathan, because it's like, you kept this from me, but more so than you anything. I expressly told you both last episode, do not confront Lex Luthor, do not get mixed up with him, but you did it anyway. And not only that, your blunder made it so that he knows, which Jordan's like, who cares at this point? All I care about is getting dad back. It's like, yes, but you're threatening everything that we spent these years trying to keep this family secret, and it could all end up being exposed. And it's always going to be something that Lexus can have in his back pocket. That's a trump card he's always willing to play, but I think he is that type of person. Oh, I'm gonna play with my food a little bit first before I kind of sink my teeth into it. Just that he has that about him, and so I don't think he'll play that card immediately until it proves to be the most effective. It's like when that card can get played to be the most devastating, because like, once again, now Superman's #1 arch nemesis knows his secret, and his family could always be in danger because of that. So it's going to be a complicated thing depending on how the future plays out in the storyline. But obviously Lois snaps at him, Jordan, even more, being like, you're not your dad, at least not yet. And it's just, for her, she even talks to Lana about it. And we saw this last season, and we've seen like how cocky Jordan can be with his powers. But it's also because he's trying so hard to prove himself, prove that he's ready, he can be a hero. For her, it's like, she's like, as we know, like Jordan has like emotional issues. I forgot, they don't call it by what it is anymore, but like they brought it up in the first season. Like, he has like, I forgot, it's like a very specific like emotional situation. Like, it's not always the easiest for, like, his emotions are always like, it's a complicated thing when it comes to his emotions, and it's like that probably just got amplified by having powers, and she thought it would like regulate him in that regard. But it's like, yeah, all he cares about is the fame and attention, and she's like, him getting powers might have just done more harm than good, you know? And they saw that last season. I mean, once again, like, you would have been a kept surprise if you hadn't kind of posed for photos and stuff like that. You wouldn't have given, quote unquote, Gretchen the video to be able to show, like, oh, so Lex already knew there was a super. He was like, wait, he has powers. He was kind of out of the loop, but because there were videos of you out, like, that kind of helped put 2 and 2 together, I'm sure. But once again, because the confrontation with Jordan happened earlier in the episode, and that situation happened at the end when he showed up with Lois. Like, it's just piecing it all together. It's like, if you hadn't done that, that helped probably fuel, and then your confrontation this episode probably solidified any thoughts. And then he had to confront Lois about it, and her reaction probably like confirmed, like, was the final nail in the coffin. It was like, yeah, I am right. Either way, Jordan hears his dad's heart, but it's like, yeah, there's so many hearts in the world, how can you hear it? It's interesting detail to be like, no, a human's heart beats twice, dad's beats 3 times. I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting little detail there. kind of like a whole, kind of makes me think of like Gallifreyans. I don't think it's a Time Lord specific thing. I think it's specifically a Gallifreyan thing of like, right, Gallifreyans are different biology than humans in regards of they have two hearts, whereas humans only have one. So it just little details like that I thought was kind of interesting. But Jordan goes off looking for his dad's heart. He's sneaking around, but even Jonathan told him, "Is like it's going to be a trap. It's obviously a trap." But Jordan's so angry and full of himself, and it doesn't matter. He's going to, of course, let it be a trap. He's going to pay the price for underestimating. I mean, and it turns out it was the disgusting, like, oh, it manifested like it was a toy that gave off the same sound as Superman's heart. Is like, that is sick and disgusting. Jonathan is breaking into Lex's place while Sarah's trying to keep him distracted. Then Lana finds out about it, and it's like, well, we got to tell Jonathan to get out of there. But the moment Lex wasn't there anymore, I was like, there's no way he's going to work. Because my immediate thought was, he's not going to Jordan or Jonathan. He's going to be there at the Kent farm. I thought that's where that was going to be. No, that whole sequence is so effed up on so many different regards. First and foremost, Lois getting a call of like, okay, pretending of a fake voice pretending to be Clark. It's like, yeah, I am dead, and soon we're our sons. Oh, you have to choose. Press 1 to save Jordan, 2 to save Jonathan. You only have a couple seconds, or they both die. We'll never know which one she pressed. We'll never know, and it doesn't matter. But the fact is, her being put in that situation of, and I guarantee you the person she pressed was Jonathan, because she thought like, well, Jordan has power, so he'll be more likely okay. I'm sure that's going to be the case. We will never know, because I think it's not important, but like her being forced in that position, like, not unless we find out the number she pressed was 1, and that is in fact why Lex lets Jordan go later on. We'll never fully know which case that might have been, because I could definitely see that going either way. But yeah, like, Jordan is, well, as I brought up in last episode, it's like, right, he doesn't know that Jordan isn't as affected by kryptonite as Clark is, so Jordan had that little surprise, so that he's getting blasted with all the kryptonite, and they kind of flash back to him remembering that scene from last season when his dad was standing up to all that kryptonite. He's pushing himself forward, still gets blasted back, but because he's not knocked out, completely rendered helpless by the kryptonite, he gets up, knocks everybody out. But Lex was counting on that and had like a sonic, sound ready to cripple Jordan. And it's like, all right, you want your dad's heart? Here, like, I told you weren't ready, kid, but here, here, drops it on the floor. I was like, he's going to do the bad guy thing. He's got to do it. He's like, all right, I'm not going to kill you, and I could, but there's still got to be a price to pay. And he squishes Clark's heart. You're like, man, I was like, and walks away. I was like, this cold motherfucker. I was like, wow, that. But now I'm also thinking, like, you say that, especially because later on he looks in like his room and he sees, like, I don't know if he knows that Jonathan was in there or not, because he looked at a suitcase, and I know Jonathan didn't open one, so I don't know if it's a thing of, oh, that's actually the heart still there, like that's not the real heart, that he keeps it with him or something like that, like, oh, I'm not going to get rid of my trophy. But there's also a part of me like, there's a really, really good chance he really did destroy the heart just to make it sting, just to remove any opportunity for you to bring back Superman, because it's like, but also it could be like I said, I just don't know what to make of like him staring at that case of like recognizing like, oh, someone was in here, or he goes like, oh, that's actually where the heart really is, because he also wants them to, like, now he knows like, oh, if you had the heart, you could probably bring him back. Well, let me keep it as extra trophy just to kind of rub in your face. You're not going to be looking for it now because you think it's gone. So that's heartbreaking all on its own, because Jordan's blaming himself. It's like, you were right, Mom, I wasn't ready. And now we had one opportunity and chance to get the heart back, and now I've screwed the pooch on that, and now it's gone. Even Jonathan gets pissed at his brother. But it's like, yeah, as Lois says, this is what he wanted us to do. He wants us to tear each other apart, But it's like, all we have is each other. We have to find a way to keep going without your father, which I don't even know how to even begin approaching that. It's like, we have to just kind of say goodbye. And then Lana getting the news at the end of the episode, despite her trying to fight back against Lex, saying like, right, I'll take the brunt of it. I don't want you to get caught up in any of this, Sarah. But, her finding out about Clark, it's just kind of like, there was some part of her, I think, still holding out hope. And this is something Lois said, like, you holding on to hope is not a bad thing. She was saying that to both Jonathan and Jordan. It's like, you holding on to hope is what your father would have wanted you to do. You know, he's the symbol of hope. And, you know, and for Lana, it's just like her best friend's gone. You know, it's just like, I've known him my entire life. It's like she was holding on, like pushing on all the sides. Like, it's Superman. He always comes back. I know he will be. I'm hearing that he's in a recovery process. They're going to get the heart back. Like, there's elements to this. You know, it's like, right, he'll be okay. But now it's like, if they've given up, that means, wait, Clark really is gone. So, ultimately, they go to the Fortress of Solitude to say their goodbyes. And Laura presents them like what she is, kind of that AI system. Clark had prepared one. It was around the time of last season. Well, at least when they made this place, so anywhere between season 2 and 3. But he didn't tell them about it because they became more, you know, concerned, obviously, about Lois's, you know, cancer. And it's like, this is all they'll have left of him. He's like, I was hoping it would never come down to this, but I'll be here in the fortress, whatever you need. But outside of here, it's going to be up to you three to kind of figure things out. And this is the only way they... I mean, he is, once again, he's like Jor-El and Laura in that it's like this responsive thing of like, it's kind of Superman without it being him. It's like you have like some version of him still with them, but still it doesn't change the fact of not actually having him. And it just, you know, and you know, it's an interesting parallel considering like, right, Clark never knew Jor-El and only knew the hologram him. You know, I don't know if that hurts more than Jonathan and Jordan. All they have left is a hologram, though they've had 17 years with their father. Like, you know, which one is worse? Which one is more painful? You know, each comes with its own like devastation and hurt. Like, no, they're both sucky options, and there's no winning in either comparison. But it's like, oh, which one's technically worse? I guess. There's also another detail I wanted to focus on. We had the whole situation with Jonathan checking out Lex's board because he's followed everything that Elizabeth's been up to. And when we saw a photo of her, I was like, wait, is that looked like Elizabeth Henstridge, but I'm not 100% sure. Like, either that was her or just someone that looked like her. It'd be interesting if it was her because I know there's at least one episode I remember pointing out that she directed, but I don't remember if she's directed multiple episodes or not. But that'd be interesting if she went from like directing an episode or some, because like I said, she might have directed more than one, and being in the show playing his daughter, which would also be interesting too, because if it is in fact her, which I should also point out, if you're unfamiliar, Elizabeth Henstridge played Simmons in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that's probably the thing most people probably best know her for. But I don't know if like that's just an actress that just happens to look a lot like her. I couldn't quite tell, but I'm like, that looks like that's her, but that could easily just be a different actress. So if I'm wrong, I do apologize, but that actress looks a lot like Elizabeth Henstridge. It'd be interesting if it was her, just because it'd be interesting to hear her do an American accent. I mean, not unless they make her British in this, but you know, because I think I've only ever heard her being British with her natural British accent, just because I mean, for she's naturally British, but also like she kept her accent in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She is in her 30s, so I kind of looked that up just to confirm, because I was like, oh, how old is she? So I was like, she could play Lex's daughter, so I was curious. Like I said, I didn't look into it on whether or not it actually was her or not, but that's going to be interesting, especially because we found out that like the date, apparently Lex has got, they were able to turn someone into DOD to their side, but either way, it's like, they found out that she contacted the DOD the day like before Lex got out, and because she wanted to make sure she disappeared, and Lex is like, well, her mom poisoned her mind for like 17 years, so of course she's going to be hesitant, but it's going to take time. But it's like, where is she? It's like, well, the only person that knows that location is Sam, so he's going to come after Sam even harder again to get that information, or at least he's going to push some pressure points to force Sam's hand to give him some information. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all this takes us. It's like, oh, you thought last season was tough? Because it's like, well, last season was tough because it was real world stuff of, yeah, Lois has cancer. So it's pretty rough in that regard. But now it's like, oh, Superman's dead, and everyone's dealing with the pain and the ripple effect and the trauma. Ooh, it's going to be so painful. Oh, yeah, I also completely forgot one of the people that was there when Jordan took off with Clark's body saw it, and he let Lana know, but he plans on not saying anything because the reason why he pieced it together because he saw the way Jonathan, Jordan, and Lois were acting, because he had lost his wife, because I think his wife was sick, and so he knows that pain of like, you lost someone you love. That isn't just like, oh, you're a friend. Like, no, there's something deeper there. And he's like, I'm going to keep it hush hush. But Lois is like, yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, that guy promised he's going to keep his mouth shut about it, because he's like, yeah, Superman's doing so much for us. And it's like, I get the feeling like by the end of this series, they probably will be unknown. I mean, in Bizarro World, they were known. So they're going to... I'm curious to see if they try to put that genie back in the bottle by the end of this series or not. Or is it just going to be the end? I mean, there are examples of it all. I mean, it'd be interesting if they did end it that way, because... side note, spoilers for Supergirl if you never saw how Supergirl ended. Literally the last thing of Supergirl is Kara revealing herself to the world of like, oh, I'm Kara Danvers, I'm also Supergirl. So, I mean, other than like that, the only other hero that was known publicly in the Arrowverse was Oliver. Like, Oliver had been known as a Green Arrow for a couple seasons, you know, like the last, what, 2 seasons? Because he was found out in season 6, and throughout they had to deal with the aftermath of that, and throughout 7 and then 8. So there's only like a handful of heroes that are like outed in the Arrowverse, and yes, this ain't the same continuity, but still, so it's just kind of interesting. So I'm curious to see if it'd be an interesting parallel if they decide to go in this route, being like, oh yeah, it's Clark is like revealed to be Superman. Like I said, there's a good chance they put that genie back in the bottle. And not listening, they make it a thing of it becomes a Smallville secret and not a world secret. I mean, the world knows, but like maybe it's not, what I mean is only Smallville people, residents of Smallville know, and they all keep this secret. Maybe that ends up being we'll see. We'll see what the show ultimately ends up doing. But I'm so excited to see where all this ends up taking us going forward. Obviously, 1 episode a week until we reach the series finale. I am curious to see if they're going to double up on the series finale, or is like episode 9 and 10 going to be a week apart. I'm curious to see what they do. I didn't know this was going to be a 2-hour premiere until like maybe a couple days ago. I just happened to see like a poster for it. Either way, that's kind of beside the point. It doesn't matter either way. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.